Right? What is he doing? He's normalizing the idea of firing. Right? I think Robert Mueller's going to be fired. You want my opinion?
You think he's going to be fired?
Yeah. I think he's going to be fired and it becomes just another partisan issue because this is not a democracy. Did you have a second question?
Well, my second question
Sorry.
was, I just was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you think we got into this situation. Because you didn't talk about that too much in your talk, maybe.
And I tried to
big,
avoid
a
getting
big
into
issue,
it, but a lot of things. I am not as sympathetic to the idea that there was this huge class of people that the parties were ignoring that have rebelled. I think that is kind of racist, frankly. And I'll tell you why. How many articles, raise your hand if you've been inundated with articles on Twitter or an email about how the Republican Party let down the African American working class. Raise your hand if you read that article. Right? How Latinos abandoned the Republican Party because the Republican Party didn't reach out to them regarding their concerns about education. Did anyone read that article? No. How about for the 20th straight presidential election, Jews voted overwhelmingly for the Democrat because Republicans failed to make an argument about the importance of religious pluralism. I didn't read the Jewish press, but I missed that argument, right? I make that point because implicit in that argument is the racist notion that only white people in our society should be catered to by both parties. Only white people get to have both parties want their vote, right? So I don't really buy that, right? I also think that again, this is the non-alarmist me speaking for a minute. The most interesting thing about the 2016 election was how much like the 2012 election it was, right? So what in my view has really happened here is one, in the kind of, some kind of macro things, right? Partisanship and ideology dovetailed, whereas they used to, and reinforced each other over the last 20, 30 years, whereas it used to be we had more partisanship within the parties than between the parties. That's changed, that's created more tension, right? Our institutions have become weaker, right, over time. That is clear. The media environment, we've gone from the age of broadcasting to narrowcasting to egocasting, right? I mean, I wrote my last book, I didn't talk about much today, but I don't know if anyone here is a baseball fan. I made 2 or 3 baseball references. I know that Joseph got it. I don't know anyone else did. But if you're a baseball fan today, if you're a fan of the Mets, like you can get up every day and read about the Mets catching prospects and nothing else. You don't have to read it. You don't even know the starting lineup for the Red Sox and the Yankees, right? So we're all not just getting things that reinforce articles or that reinforce our views, but we're getting on the exact issues that only we care about, right? So that ego casting has gotten to be, a very real problem. And the second is that one of the parties, and I won't say which, but it begins with an R, for the last 2 or 3 decades, has fed the American people 3 messages. 1, government can only do harm. 2, you live terribly and it's the government's fault, right? And 3, we should tear this thing down. Well, that's been the diet of right-wing media for 3 decades. That has an effect. I remember in the early 1990s, Bill Clinton was president. It was 94, 95. And it was probably 94, it was shortly after 95, 96. It was right after Timothy McVeigh had the Oklahoma City bombing. Everyone remembers that. And he said something. It was kind of a throwaway line in a speech he made. I don't remember a lot of Bill Clinton's speeches, except I really want to get home after this to see if he'll finish the one from the 88 convention. But he said, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, I forget what he said exactly, people will say there was this bombing and there was this uptick before that in right-wing media talking about hatred for the government. And he said there's a chance they'll say it was irrelevant, but there's a pretty good chance they won't, right? And that's what we're seeing here. 30 years of that messaging had its impact. Now, it's nonsense, right? When you read about how bad things are for the white working class in America, I mean, look, we are in bad economic times for many people. There is no doubt that the wealth has been, more and more concentrated at the top. But the Democratic Party didn't abandon those people, right? Had Democrats been elected and Democratic policies been passed without Republican obstruction, they would have been much better off. So I think that those are all parts of it. Okay. You have a question? Yes, you. Go ahead. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Then you. Go ahead, then you. You and then you. No. You with the curly hair. You in the white shirt. Go. Sorry. No one has names. No one's coming to the mic. Sorry.
How do we as a nation become more united?
Well, that for many years in the United States, we had a unifying national ethos. And that was, not everyone believed it, didn't apply to everybody, but it was big enough. Which is that if we work hard and do all those things, play by the rules, our kids will have it better than we will, right? That was the belief. That held the country together. Right now, we have two very divergent messages. One is we are moving toward a tolerant, multicultural new America, and we're very excited about it. That is the message that what are now kind of always derogatorily called liberal elites believe. Because it's bad to believe that everyone should be equal and it'd be an exciting thing to live around lots of difference and people who are all treated equally. That's a terrible idea, right? But that's one idea. That's what mobilizes one group of Americans. The other group of Americans, we need to get back to when things were better for us. And there is a racial and kind of ethnic subtext to that. Those two ideas are not compatible. What we need is a new idea. And, I think President Obama failed in this. And he failed largely because he tried to get back to the original idea, right? And the Obamas were the ultimate of that, right? I mean, they were called elite because they studied hard and went to good schools, which is what we're all maybe supposed to do, But that was, and also they may have noticed they were African American. I don't know if the New York papers picked that up, but that was part of, I think, what maybe that wasn't as well received as much should have. But that message isn't working. So we need to get a new theme that unifies our country. And that doesn't mean that some genius politician has to come up, though that would help, right? But somehow we need to build support for that. And that is not going to be easy. But failing that, we need to have functioning democratic institutions. And that seems like that's possible. Without either of those things, I think we're in big trouble. So you, yes.
My name is Sheila.
Okay, so someone's got a hand, good.
Thank you for this talk. I find it really interesting. I have three quick questions. But I want to say that when Trump started his campaign, that it appeared to me that the whatever democracy was and the Democratic Party didn't have, or the country didn't have the structures in place that would prevent something like this happening. Because I don't think it's Trump that captures the Republicans, as you said. I think it's the other way around. I think they're cowards to say what they truly mean, which Trump has the whatever audacity to say. When I listen to Trump and after he won, I begin to look at Mugabe, Blaise Compaoré, and other dictators around the world. I begin to read Pol Pot again. I begin to look at Hitler. I begin to look at all these horror stories that we call them. And what I find is that we throw out democracy a lot. And I think two people asked you the question about democracy, and you talked about democracy over the last 3 decades. Or we still don't know what that democracy is in the United States, because I've never seen democracy in the United States. And I've lived here for a long time. I work in countries embroiled in conflict. And I see the Americans come in and talk about democracy, and I usually ask the question, what kind of democracy? What are you exporting to these countries? Look at Iraq, look at Iran, and look at other countries around the world. So what do you mean by, and I think you have some idea, you don't want to share it with us on the democracy thing. What do you mean by democracy? And I totally agree with you that I'm saying 2020 Trump will win the election again, because I don't think the Democratic Party is ready. I've gone to all the town halls that I can manage to go to here, and I don't see it happening because I don't think they're reacting now. I am not listening to Trump because the noise is too much. I'm watching what Trump is saying. And as a media person myself also, I do blame the media for some of the stuff that are going on. And it backfired on them, kind of a thing. So there's much to do, and I would like to hear please talk about democracy, what's your idea of
So there's a
what
lot
a
there.
democracy
There's
is?
a lot there under the pants, under the table. So I'm trying to remember. A couple of things. First, I wrote a whole book about this question of democracy promotion in Americans going overseas, and if you can call it the Democracy Promotion Paradox. It's worth reading. We wanted it to be like the book, one of these books that people would read as the election approached, and the election went crazy, and nobody was reading serious books about anymore. But to get to some of your other points, I very much agree with you in that Trump articulates what many Republican voters don't want to say out loud. But when I say the capture, I mean the leadership level, right? The leadership level is a little different. Your points about American democracy are very important. So, for example, the first election in American history for president that meets minimal standards of international standards of free and fair elections was when? Does anyone know? No. What?
2036.
Maybe. If we can get it right. Yeah.
Maybe the first election with the Voting Rights
Right,
Act.
1968.
Yeah.
1968, many of us in this room were alive in 1968, right? So before 1968, we did not have elections that were really democratic. Now, if you don't have elections that are democratic, you don't have a democracy. If you have elections that are democratic, you may or may not have a democracy, but you got a fighting chance, right? By 2016, that's the window. Right? That's not that many. That's Nixon's first term to the end of the Obama period, right? The kind of modern. Now, to me, I'm not hiding anything, but I don't want a long discussion because I just don't have the time for it, right? Democracy is a complicated idea. What we have done in the United States, both domestically and internationally, is define it very much about processes rather than outcomes, right? So for example, words that we don't hear when we talk about democracy in the United States is equal. For example, are equality, right? It's equality of opportunity. I'm never quite sure what that means because we don't have that. Never equality of outcome, right? It's one person, one vote, but it's also not one person, $1, one vote, right? If you understand what I'm saying, right? We have institutions that are set up to stop democracy, such as the United States Senate, such as the Electoral College. So I am not here saying we need to go back to kind of halcyon days of 1998 or anything like that. I am saying that that's a lot better than where we're going now. Because I think you could make a good argument that from about 1960 to 2016, with a few bumps along the way, we were moving in the right direction. We were expanding the idea of democracy. Ultimately, democracy, like many things in life, is a process, not an event. I think we're moving that process in the right direction. I don't think we're doing that anymore. That's about the best answer I can give you. Yes, and then with the tie in the back.
I want to ask about practicality and time commitments and stuff like that. We're indivisible. We're really concerned right now with the Healthcare Act. First of all, I'm very concerned about the degradation of civil society and institution. And I think that more democracy is the answer. But what do we do on the ground when we have jobs and families and limited time? And we got some time to call a senator and say, you should do this proposed Healthcare Act. And it seems like your proposal, which is concentrating on kind of a grand coalition of small d democracy kind of push, would mean that we wouldn't be able to focus on the small, for lack of a better term, smaller battles like billions of Americans being deprived of health care. What's the cost benefit analysis there? Because I can't reconcile not doing something about health care.
Yeah, these are tough questions. And again, I would go back to the first principle, right? My first principle, which is this is not democracy anymore, right? So the impact that now I don't know what senators you would be calling, right? But if you're calling senators in purple states that are on the fence, they know that it's politically in a democratic America would be suicide to support this, political suicide to support this act. They know that, right? But it's Pollyannish to say you kind of have to do both. So I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that for me, we have to understand that we live in a country, regardless of your political opinion, that sometimes your party loses elections, right? You have to understand that. And you have to understand that every policy costs lives, right? When you raise the speed limit, people die, right? When you change some minor regulation on healthcare or housing or anything, people die, right? This is what policy in a country of 330 million people is about. When you change a law, people go bankrupt, people lose this happens. Now, we can all want better laws to stop that from happening, right? So disastrous proposals like the American Health Care Act, we can all want to stop. But if we don't recognize that we're going to have to live in a country where stuff like that happens, right? And it is, it's easy to say, well, we had Reagan and we survived him, except many people didn't. Not least because he did absolutely nothing about AIDS for 8 years. I don't know if any of you remember that, right? We had Bush and we survived him, except many people didn't, right? So these are life and death issues. Politics in a modern, large country is always, these are very, very high stakes games, not just for money, but for lives and deaths. But without democracy, the problem is much, much more intense. Now, I also think that one doesn't preclude the other. I think it's little bit of a false dichotomy. And I'll give you an example how to think about this, because it's bizarre, right? So you will hear people say, now let's get some political reality. And I know it's a tangent, but there's a point to this. If Mike Pence were ever to be president, he would make Ronald Reagan look like Jerry Brown or somebody, right? I mean, Mike Pence would be the most conservative president in American history. In modern American history. So there are people who say, look, we don't want to impeach Trump because then Pence would just push all this Republican stuff. That's illogical nonsense to use. And the reason for that is that the political circumstances that would need it to impeach Donald Trump would mean that Pence would either be impeached himself or the Republican Party would have so few votes in Congress that it wouldn't matter anyway. And the point I'm making is that these are related tasks. If you fight them on the democracy front, there's this constant thing on Facebook that gets me crazy, right? Like everything else on Facebook, and it says, while you were distracted by Russia, this and this happened. I always feel like saying, actually, when some foreign dictator tries to intervene with our elections to elect a lunatic authoritarian, I'm not sure that's a distraction. And by the way, no laws have been passed, right? So these are all related. What I'm arguing, I guess, ultimately, is that democracy is really the key one, and if you fight them there, you're going to cripple them on this right-wing stuff. They're going to do something, but they're not going to be able to do everything. The other thing is that because this is a long fight, yes, we have to understand that, it doesn't mean you're not going to be happy until we have democracy again. It doesn't mean you're not going to read a novel or watch some, goofy television show or go to a baseball game until we have democracy again, right? We're not monks here. And that's not going to work, and we're all going to go insane. So we need balance, but we need to understand that we are confronting a unique, in many of our lifetimes, well, not all of our lifetimes, but political challenge. But you in the purple shirt, you've been so patient.
I was curious. It seems like the Macron in France is lurking in the background. A couple things you said. Do you feel like it's relevant? Is Western Europe facing the same kind of questions of democracy that Central Europe and the Middle East and the U.S. are? And would it be relevant for a 2020 unity party?
Well, I think that's the intriguing part of the question. I mean, there's this, it is striking to me how so many people who 5 years ago, including me, would be upset about this kind of slick businessman type becoming like the president of France. Like, oh, thank God, it's a normal person now, right? Because Le Pen is really a dangerous figure. But I think now the difference is that the French legal system allows for phenomena like Macron to occur, whereas ours it's much, much more difficult. But yes, that's kind of the way we need to be thinking. I mean, I was hosting a television show about, and it was really kind of interesting, but off the camera we had a discussion about Oprah, right? And some of the names that are being thrown around, Oprah, Theo Epstein, right? These are candidates, and I not like neither the Red Sox nor the Cubs, so I have my own opinions on those things. But I think that's the way we have to kind of be thinking about this, right? It is, and so Macron could be instructive that way. I think it is Europe facing the same, it's facing similar, right? and there's a longer discussion. We want to be careful about overplaying this populism narrative, right? Because that falls into a lot of right-wing traps also. Yes.
Yeah, you talked about the need to unify, and also about the exceptionalism for those of us who are straight and white and some Christian, and the need to have civil society. And I wonder if you would talk about, my friends who are African American or are immigrants are living in a police state of fear, and that's another way that our civil society has already been deconstructed, and our unity is attacked.
Right, absolutely, and this is also how Trump is delivering political results to his base, right? If people know that Mexicans and African Americans are afraid, that's a win for Trump, right? I don't have an answer other than that our work in civil society, if you are not in a group that is directly threatened, our work on First Amendment issues must help support the groups that are being threatened, and they need to be part of this coalition, right? I'm really not making an argument of we all, let's put a straight white Christian middle-aged face on this and hope for the best, right? The new America, the next America regardless, the next America, if it's the Bannonite America, it's going to be a very, very large minority that are second-class citizens. That's not sustainable. Nobody wants to live in that society, even if you are in the privileged group, right? So, that's not, Donald Trump's fantasies of deporting 11 million people, that's fantasy. Deporting every Muslim is a bizarre fantasy, right? So, if you want to live in the new democratic America, I think we have to, work towards crafting a new democratic America that has really radically different ideas of equality. That's what the old structures aren't going to work. What those look like, I don't know. But that's the diversity that we need. But it needs to be very, very broad and all-encompassing. It's also the local civil society support, right? I'm not an attorney, but those attorneys who are going out there and working for free, help people, that is hugely valuable. The immigrant groups that are helping not just immigrant groups, because African Americans aren't immigrants, those organizations are really valuable, and they are under attack. And I think they're going to be under more attack soon, because that's the only way I can see this administration going. But directly supporting them whatever way we can is absolutely critical. Couldn't agree more. Yes, I'm done.
When you said the 3 points about the Republican Party and the kind of self-hatred toward government, it was reminding me of something I read about the Weimar Republic, about the failure of the Weimar Republic, was this constant destruction of the government, which in some sense is a democracy. It represents the people, so it's a self-hatred. If there's a problem with government, it's a problem with the voters, the public, the populace.
Yeah, and it's also very abstract, right? This is an odd thing about we talk more about the federal government, right? If you are, for many people in America, particularly middle-class people, the contact they have with the federal government is what? Post office. Right, and the only time I really encounter someone who, the FBI didn't come to my door, right? It's the post office, right? So it's an abstraction, and it's very easy to vilify that abstraction, especially when the person at the head of that federal government doesn't look exactly like you, right? But this is very dangerous rhetoric, and of course it's done for a reason. There are financial interests, obviously, that a huge part of the Trump victory is rich white people want to lower taxes, and you can make excuses till the cows come home. But that's what drives a lot of this. Now, you raise this kind of issue of self-hatred. I think that's true, right? I always tell people, whenever you begin the sentence with the Democrats, the Republicans, and I did that a few times tonight too, so I'm guilty of that. There are no the Democrats, right? There are no the Republicans. There's no the government. It's just kind of us. And I think for many people, it's also a frightening thought. Just in the back.
Hi. One of the first things to me is how can we get more people in front of these engaged in voting? Also, keep trying to flip Republicans. I think that's a really bad strategy. There's so much people that are disengaged with the whole. And why is it?
Well, I don't claim to speak for why the Democratic Party does or can't do something. You're right in the great extent. Part of that is a structural problem. Most people who are in the Democratic base live in places where their vote doesn't matter. right? So most people, and this is not, I don't think that redistricting and getting rid of gerrymandering is the magic bullet, but it's part of the problem, right? So that most people, if you live somewhere where your member of city council, state assembly, state senate, house of representatives, and all your statewide elected officials are Democrats, right? Let's say you live in San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, for example, and there's a lot of people, Boston, who fit that description. Electoral politics is not the best use. Voting is easy, but it's not really the best use of the time. I think when you get to, the key areas are communities where there's a lot of base voters in swing states, and clearly a better campaign in Philadelphia and Detroit could have shifted this election. Probably throw Milwaukee in too, right? Could have shifted this election. Why that doesn't happen, I don't know, right? I think I think that at some point the Democratic Party, the Clinton this is not an attack on Hillary Clinton, but we need to move past the Clinton era, right? The only candidate at the national level who has really mobilized voters has been a distinctly non-Clinton feel about it, even though he was an ally eventually of them. But it's not just about Hillary, right? It's not her fault. But we need to make people believe that this is relevant. One of the problems of having a Democratic Party, this is not a criticism of Tom Perez or Hillary Clinton, but a Democratic Party that, for going back to, I guess, Thomas Jefferson, has been a party that has had a strong element of ruling economic interest in it, rather than a real socialist-based left-wing party, is that the story that voting for you is going to change, voting for this party is really going to mean change, is a hard one, right? There are many people who are base voters who had 8 years of Obama, and some of them had great pride in Obama, but he didn't really solve their problems. So telling the same story, I joked about this in 2016. 2016, one of the things you kept hearing is this is the most important election of your life. Well, I would always respond when everyone said me that and said, okay, what was the least important election, right? And the reason was, one, I'm a smartass, but two, because we keep telling people the same things over and over again. Right? This doesn't, and people are just tired of hearing it. So you got to go with messages that work, right? You got to go with candidates that resonate. You may be, I don't know how many candidates we have to nominate who were born between 1945 and 1950, but maybe moving beyond that will be helpful too. And I'm old enough that I can say that without being ageist. Yes, good.
So a lot of what you're talking about, as far as ways to sort of fight democratic rollback, is a movement from the people. But if you were to sort of follow the Howard Zinn type theory of part of how American government was based was sort of creating laws and rulings that prevent people's uprisings. So how do you sort of fight the fact that the way our democracy has sort of been built was to sort of prevent a people's revolution of sorts?
Well,
Or do you disagree with that idea?
I think it's a bit, I'm trying to consider this, it's a bit of an oversight, right? We have had people's movements that have made tremendous changes. You can look at the civil rights movement and say it was all 9 judges, or you can take a kind of social movement view of that. You can look at the radically different ways LGBT people are treated in the United States today as compared to when I was growing up, and say that was because of a handful of court cases, or you can say because it was a major social movement. You can look at labor movements in much of the 20th century. So I'm not sure I agree with that. But this goes back a little bit to my closing, right? We're moving towards, if we win, it's a different kind of America, right? And to a great extent, you halfway through, 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way through your question, you said, in our democracy. It's not our democracy anymore. It's in our...
Democracy.
Right.
Whatever this is that people...
Right, but what I'm saying is the rules are different now, right? And also, we got 4 million people on the streets the day after the inauguration. That's not nothing. It's not the 20 million I fantasize about in my non-existent PowerPoint, but it's not nothing, right? So this can be done. There are no rules that say there's nothing stopping you other than lack of interest, a little bit of residual fear, busyness, some economic hardships, which are frankly not overwhelming for many people, to stop you from going down the streets. They really aren't. So this can be done. Good.
Don't you think that some of the